Yeah, I'll start it off with so when I think about this, I think about how when someone's hurt, if they have a broken bone or something like that, you can see that that person is healing, that they've been through some sort of pain. But if it's an emotional pain, you can't really see that. And sometimes I feel like when we're going through emotional pain, in the case of a relationship, so we thought this was the right person, but we found out that they're not. Maybe there was deception that led to the breakup, or maybe there was just no longer a connection. But either way, once that emotional um, relationship, the emotional part of the relationship is the part that really hurts. And so a lot of times we don't really know how to deal with that. We may feel like anger, we may feel like we don't want to talk to anyone and seclude ourselves. But those things we want to take to God. And in Psalms 147:3, it says, the healing the broken in heart and bringeth up their wounds. So God, heals the broken in heart, and he binds up the wounds. So he fixes that. And so when we are going through those things, we just have to keep in mind that yes, it hurts, and it probably won't be the only time, but we'll be okay. We can get through that. So I want to ask the question, and I'm just wondering, what are some things that young adults like yourselves are carrying, that wounds that may never be seen, that you don't mind talking about? What are some of those things?
So I kind of had a couple of answers for this. I would say number one would be like past friendship slash relationship wounds.
It's a good one.
Those are some things that people can't see. And these can be relationships that ended maybe 5 weeks ago, could be from like elementary school that I couldn't get over because that was like my bestie. So I think a lot of times those types of wounds people can't really see. They might see the reaction to those things. So for example, someone might be jumping from like friend group to friend group or like relationship to relationship, and someone might be like, why don't they seem like they are settled or they have like, a certain friend for long term? It's like you don't know what happened in the previous relationship that made them leave. Like it could have been something really toxic, and they're really trying to find themselves and really their people, and they're kind of in the process of doing that. So it might not always be a them problem. It could be, the kind of people they were experiencing prior, and they're really honing on their values and what they'll accept and not accept and who they'll let into their circle. So I think those are some of the wounds that a lot of young people deal with, especially since we are at our age, like we're not too far from childhood, I'd like to say still. So we're still kind of, again, developing ourselves and knowing what we want. And then therefore that will lead into who we want around us. So I
Mm,
think friendships and relationships is one of the wounds that people don't really see. And it is kind of maybe a bit like embarrassing sometimes to like show that grieving process, so we hide it,
mm,
and we try to put up, a front, or look like we're everything is fine, everything's okay, because we, like, as humans, we like to be in relationship, we like to be partnered, we like to have a good core friend group that you can do things with, post on social media with. So like if you don't have that, or you're in the process of finding a new one, it's kind of, you don't really want people to see that you're like alone or lonely.
got it. Yeah, that's a good one, because I feel like, and you the others, you guys can chime in, but I feel like for young adults in their 20s, 30s, that's a big thing, is they want these groups, these communities. They want to be able to have a group of people that they can go play basketball with, or go to restaurants with, or go shopping with, or just chill with. And I don't know if the COVID pandemic affected that anyway, but I feel like that in itself was a wound. Probably, probably to get through for a lot of people. So hey, there's also these social, I guess you could call it social type wounds where your life changes and your norm is no longer your norm. And so it's like, how do I get past that? So that's another type of wound. But chime on in, Sabrina, Nate.
Oh, you could
Oh,
go ahead.
okay. I did want to mention that being an adult, young adult, when you friendship changes, like how we communicate in like middle school, elementary school, high school, whatever, you see your friends usually every day in class at school. When you graduate college, um, everyone then starts getting into their own field, into their own job. And now hanging out with people is like scheduling appointments. And sometimes, and this is something I was actually dealing with this week, I have friends who are very busy and we'll start a conversation, we'll start texting each other, and then our conversation doesn't get finished for like 2 weeks. And then some one of us have to reach out and be like, "Hey, where are you?" Like, just something funny to saying like, "Oh, hey, remember me? Like we were having a conversation." And then they'll get back to you. But it just the dynamic changes. I think it starts off in college when you're like busy, you kind of text here and there, but then when you graduate and you start working, everything just changes. So the dynamic of friendship definitely changes. And I know a few young adults who did, leave high school and maybe didn't go to college, um, and just even out of high school, it got really hard for them to keep friends because people just, life happened. Some people got in relationships, some people had kids, and it just changed the dynamic of everything. Some people just grew apart from friendships, and it happens. I know when I was in middle school, um, things started to change. I had friends who kind of just wanted to start doing their own thing. I had a school system where we changed um, classes and our lunches every like quarter, every few months. So then the people that I would be friends with and had lunch with were no longer with me during the next quarter. So then I was by myself. And then on top of that, I had other friends who just kind of grew up a little bit more than me, I guess, and wanted to hang out with other people and matured faster than I did at the time. And for me at that age, I didn't understand why so much change was happening around me. And I felt like I was just in one place. And that actually made me start to feel depressed because so much was changing around me and I just didn't get it. And I didn't understand why everything had to change. So, dealing with some type of pain like that, with depression, something that I used to help me through that season, and it took time, it wasn't something just overnight, but something that helped me during that season was God. I stayed listening to worship music, music that encouraged me, let me know that this isn't something that's going to last forever. I think I mentioned something like this before in one of our previous podcasts, but that's what helped me through at least my season of depression, dealing with change with friendships. But that was my way of coping and dealing with that. But yes, definitely. I love that, Tamara, that you mentioned friendship. Long story short, that's definitely one of the things that can cause different variations of stuff. Again, for me, when I was younger, for me, it caused depression at the time.
Was it and I'm wondering, there's a lot of young, I'm sorry, Nate, I'll let you go right after this, but there are a lot of young people and some adults when they lose their friends or when their friends go, they move, or when they just have different interests. People are constantly changing. We're constantly changing, right? You look back over your last 5 years, I bet you a lot of things about you have changed, and that includes our people as well. And so, yeah, that change, you said the keyword change is difficult. and it can lead to loneliness. It can people can feel hurt and betrayed. And so turning to God during those situations, trying to understand it, understanding that this is a season in your life, like you were saying, and that it's not going to always be like this. And then getting out there and actually doing things to meet other people too, right? Because you could just say, oh, everyone's left me, and then just stay in a corner, right? But getting out also. Go ahead, Nate. Sorry.
Yeah. I think, one thing I feel like, especially with young people, is like a problem is like isolation. I think,
Mm-hmm.
as humans, I think we crave, just connections with other people. And, there are seasons in life where, you know, friends, again, like, meeting up, hanging out, or just, honestly, just them being there for you, sometimes that'll go dry and it's kind of just you, by yourself. And, I think when that happens, kind of just feeling again alone, right? And, feeling like, nobody really like is like there for you in a way. I think that's really, hard to grieve. And again, back to the seasons things, I think, again, I feel like that's not, that part really doesn't last too long. But especially, I feel like, again, a great way to grieve that is, again, just, again, I feel like God is, our best friend in a way. I feel like he's a great crutch, when you're, feeling alone or, not happy. So I think, again, kind of falling back into him, into the word, when you're feeling that type of way, when I feel like that's just a great way to grieve, that particular, thing.
Amen.
Yeah,
I
amen, amen.